Do you feel your prayers hitting a wall this season? What if I told you there are hidden forces deliberately blocking your breakthroughs? I am an ex-witch, and I have seen the dark strategies they use right in your kitchen, on your plate. 3 seemingly innocent foods, but they are spiritual weapons designed to silence your prayers. Tonight, you will uncover truths most dare not speak aloud. The season of attack is here, and only knowledge can set you free. You were never taught that food is spiritual, that silence was intentional. In the occult world, food is not nourishment first. It is access. It is agreement. It is permission. I learned this early, standing in rooms where prayers were monitored, not mocked. Witches don't laugh at prayer. They study why some prayers rise and why others collapse midair. The first strategy is simple. Pollute the gate. Your mouth is not just for eating. It is a spiritual opening. What enters it does more than affect your body. It signals the spirit realm. There is a food witches target heavily during attack seasons, not because it is evil by itself, but because it dulls discernment and slows spiritual response. Heavy, blood-saturating foods consumed without prayer, without awareness, without restraint. In the coven, we were taught timing, when to eat, what to eat, and when to encourage believers to overindulge. Because spiritual heaviness weakens alertness. You stop praying sharply. You start praying vaguely. Have you noticed it? You sit down to pray, but your mind drifts. Your body feels heavy. Your words feel rehearsed, not alive. That is not just fatigue. That is a gate clogged, which is no seasons when believers are more likely to indulge without restraint. Holidays, fasting breaks, celebrations, stress periods. During those times, attacks increase. Why? Because a spiritually dulled believer is easier to delay. This food does not stop prayer immediately. It slows it. It makes it arrive late. And delayed prayer loses momentum. In rituals, we never try to destroy prayer outright. We aim to weaken its force. A prayer that rises weak is easier to intercept. And interception is real. You were told only demons attack directly. That is incomplete truth. Spiritual systems intercept frequency, and food affects frequency. When your body is overloaded, your spirit struggles to lead. Your flesh takes the microphone, and flesh does not war well. I watched believers pray powerful prayers one week, then vanish spiritually the next. Same faith, same words, different gate condition. This is why Scripture speaks about being sober and alert. Not just mentally, physically. Witches count on believers separating spirituality from daily habits. That separation is deadly because warfare is not occasional. It is constant. This food is often consumed late at night, right before sleep, when dreams are vulnerable. That timing matters. A heavy body produces foggy dreams. Foggy dreams reduce spiritual instruction, and dreams are battlegrounds. Many prayer answers are delivered in sleep. Block the dream. Delay the answer. Do you see the pattern? Nothing dramatic, nothing obvious, just subtle sabotage. In covens, we celebrated when believers overindulged during attack windows. Not because the food was cursed, but because the believer surrendered discipline. Discipline is terrifying to darkness. A disciplined believer is hard to manipulate. But once discipline drops, openings form. This is why fasting breaks are targeted. Eat, but eat wisely. Witches monitor emotional eating, stress eating, comfort eating, because emotions tied to consumption create spiritual residue. That residue clings during prayer, and residue weighs prayers down. Have you felt like your prayers are sincere but powerless? Like something unseen is pressing them down? This is one place to check. I am not telling you to fear food. Fear is also a weapon. I am telling you to restore authority. Pray before you eat, not casually, intentionally. Ask God to cleanse what enters your body. Ask Him to align your flesh with your spirit. That prayer alone disrupts many attacks because witches rely on unconscious participation. Once awareness rises, power shifts. This first food strategy works best on believers who think warfare only happens in prayer closets. But warfare happens at the table. It happens at midnight snacks, at stress meals, at indulgent moments without gratitude. And when believers regain awareness, covens notice. I have seen assignments cancelled because a believer became disciplined. One believer, one shift, one closed gate. Darkness does not need you to sin loudly. It only needs you to live unconsciously. That ends today. Your prayers are not weak. They have been slowed, and speed can be restored. Now you know the first gate they target. And knowledge is not just power. It is protection. This one shocks people because it feels harmless, comforting, familiar. But witches understand something most believers overlook. What comforts the flesh can sedate the spirit. In the occult, sweetness is not about pleasure. It is about distraction. Sugar-heavy foods are used strategically during specific spiritual seasons, not randomly, not accidentally. During seasons when believers should be alert, praying harder, listening sharper, witches push indulgence. Why? Because excessive sweetness numbs urgency. You stop feeling the weight of prayer. You stop sensing spiritual pressure. You stop responding with fire. You become calm when you should be alert. In covens, we were taught that sweetness creates compliance, not obedience. Compliance. A compliant believer still prays, but without intensity, without authority, without persistence. Their prayers become polite requests instead of commands backed by heaven. Have you noticed how easy it is to delay prayer after indulging? I'll pray later. I'm too relaxed. I'll do it tomorrow. That is not laziness. That is sedation. The spirit thrives on sharpness. The flesh loves comfort. And witches always aim to strengthen the flesh during warfare seasons. This food is often justified emotionally. I deserve this. I've been through a lot. This helps me cope. Those statements are not evil, but they are exploitable. Because when coping replaces confronting, warfare stalls. In rituals, sweetness was associated with enchantment, not in movies, in mindset. Enchantments don't always control you. They soften resistance. A softened believer does not push through resistance in prayer. They retreat when answers delay. They assume silence means no, instead of pressing until heaven responds. Sweet heavy consumption also affects blood balance, and blood matters spiritually. Scripture says life is in the blood. Witches know this. When blood energy spikes and crashes, emotional instability increases. Spiritual consistency weakens. One day you feel fired up. The next day you feel empty. That inconsistency is a weapon, because sustained prayer requires endurance, and endurance terrifies darkness. So witches aim to create spiritual mood swings. Today you worship. Tomorrow you withdraw. Next day you doubt. Same God, different internal condition. In the occult, we tracked believers who lived on emotional highs and lows. They were predictable. Predictable believers are easier to counter. The goal was never to stop them from believing. It was to keep them unstable. Sweetness helps with that, especially when consumed late in the evening, when the mind is already tired, when discernment is low. Dreams become chaotic. Thoughts become cluttered. Spiritual signals become distorted. You wake up feeling heavy, unmotivated, disconnected, and you assume it's just life. But patterns tell stories, witches love patterns. When they see a believer reaching for comfort instead of the altar consistently, they mark it, not to mock, to exploit. Because comfort replaces hunger. And hunger is dangerous to darkness. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst, not those who are constantly satisfied. A satisfied flesh dulls spiritual appetite. This is why moderation matters, not obsession, not fear, awareness. When you consume sweetness intentionally, with gratitude under prayer, its power is neutralized. But unconscious indulgence opens space. You don't lose salvation. You lose sharpness. And sharpness is needed in warfare seasons. This season is not gentle. Distractions are louder. Comfort is marketed aggressively. Spiritual resistance is subtle. Witches rely on believers underestimating small habits. But small habits create large openings over time. One sweet indulgence won't block your prayers. A lifestyle of emotional sedation will. The moment you start asking, why do I feel spiritually slow? This is one place to examine. Again, no fear. Fear feeds darkness. Authority starves it. Pray before you eat sweet foods. Declare control. Ask God to keep your spirit alert. That prayer disrupts enchantment patterns. Because witches depend on mindless cycles. Once you break cycles, you break assignments. I've seen believers regain fire simply by regaining discipline. No deliverance service, no dramatic moment. Just awareness and authority. This food strategy fails when believers stay hungry for God. And hunger is a choice. Now, you know the second tactic. They don't attack your faith directly. They sedate your urgency. But urgency can be restored. And once it is, your prayers don't just rise. They hit targets. This is the one most believers never suspect because it hides behind routine. Not indulgence. Not pleasure. Routine. Witches understand agreements. They live by them. An agreement does not require belief. It requires repetition. This third food is powerful not because of what it is, but because of how. Often it is consumed without thought, without prayer, without resistance. In the occult, repetition builds alignment. Do something once, nothing happens. Do it often, patterns form. Patterns create doors. This is why rituals. Repeat actions, same motion, same timing, same substance. Believers underestimate routine consumption, but witches do not. There are foods consumed daily that carry cultural, emotional, and symbolic weight. They are eaten quickly, mechanically, distracted, and distraction is the key. Because when you eat without awareness, your spirit does not lead. Your flesh does. That shift matters. In covens, we were trained to observe what believers consumed consistently, not occasionally. Consistency reveals leverage. This third food is often consumed early in the day. Before prayer, before scripture, before alignment. That order is critical. Because first intake sets the tone. Whatever feeds you first influences what leads you next. When flesh is fed before spirit, the flesh speaks louder. Not forever, but long enough to interfere. Have you noticed days when you intend to pray, but momentum disappears? You're not rebellious. You're misaligned. Alignment determines flow. Witches don't block prayer by force. They interrupt flow. This food is linked to speed, convenience, rushing. And rushing is spiritually dangerous because revelation requires stillness. Direction requires listening. A rushed believer prays, but does not wait. They speak, but do not receive. That's a win for darkness. In rituals, speed was used intentionally to prevent reflection. Fast chants, quick actions, no silence. Why? Silence allows conviction, awareness, course correction. This third food fuels speed culture. Eat fast, move fast, think later. And prayer becomes another rush task. But warfare does not respect haste. Have you felt like your prayers are spoken, but answers feel distant? Check the order of your day. What feeds you first matters. What you repeat matters more. Witches track believers who live on autopilot. Autopilot believers are predictable. Predictable believers are easier to delay. This is not about condemning food. It is about breaking unconscious agreements. An agreement says, this is normal. This is automatic. This does not matter. Darkness thrives where believers decide something does not matter, because everything matters in warfare, especially what you repeat. This food also ties into dependency. I can't function without it. I need this to start my day. Dependency shifts authority. Whatever you believe you need to function begins to rule you. And witches exploit dependency because dependency creates vulnerability, not possession. Influence. Influence is enough. Influence delays prayer. Influence weakens consistency. Influence steals focus. In covens, we celebrated believers who said, I'll pray after I eat. I'll pray once I'm settled. Because often prayer never came, not from rebellion, from distraction. This third food is associated with noise, screens, movement, mental clutter, and clutter clouds discernment. Your spirit speaks quietly. Clutter drowns it out. This is why Jesus withdrew. This is why Scripture honors stillness. Which is fear? Still believers. Because stillness exposes deception. When believers slow down, patterns break. And when patterns break, agreements dissolve. You don't need deliverance from this. You need reordering. Pray before consuming it. Delay it intentionally sometimes. Break the automatic cycle. Those small acts disrupt large strategies. I have watched assignments fail because a believer changed morning order. Same food, different authority. Once authority returns, prayers regain precision. They stop floating. They start landing. This food is not evil, but unconscious repetition is dangerous. Awareness breaks repetition. Prayer breaks agreement. And once agreements break, blockages collapse. Your prayers were not rejected. They were intercepted by routine. Now routine is exposed, and exposure ends leverage. Now that you know the three foods, you must understand the battlefield. This is where revelation meets action. Knowing alone does not release your prayers. Discipline does. Awareness does. Authority does. The first step is identification. Stop eating unconsciously. Observe patterns. Ask, when do I feel spiritually dull? Which meals precede that feeling? Which foods consistently slow my prayers? This is not shame. This is intelligence. Witches never attack blindly. They study patterns. And you must do the same. The second step is intentional consumption. Before every meal, declare, this food serves my body, not darkness. My spirit leads. My prayers rise without delay. Speak with authority, not casually, not as a wish, as a decree. Authority in consumption disrupts witchcraft strategies. Remember, darkness relies on unconscious participation. Awareness removes consent. The third step is timing. Prayer first, alignment first, spirit first, flesh second. Every meal becomes an act of warfare. Not indulgence, not routine. A battleground. Next is moderation, not obsession, not fear, but vigilance. Witches celebrate extremes. Your discipline diminishes their assignments. Keep a spiritual journal. Record feelings, prayer results, breakthrough patterns. Patterns expose interference, and awareness produces victory. Fasting can also reset gates. Not for punishment, for clarity, for reset, for dominance over the body, which is a weapon of the enemy when unconsciously led. Do not underestimate gratitude. Thank God for food. Thank Him for breakthrough. Thank Him for alignment. Gratitude shifts the frequency of your entire household. Remove secrecy. If you share meals with others, lead spiritually. Do not allow unconscious patterns to influence you. Even well-meaning habits can open doors. Lastly, guard your mind. Consumption is only half the battle. Thoughts, media, and conversation can reinforce blockage strategies. Treat your spiritual life holistically. Remember, prayer is not a ritual. It is a weapon. And weapons work best when the wielder is disciplined, aware, and strategic. Once you apply these steps, you will notice change. Prayers rise faster. Dreams carry clarity. Breakthroughs appear where stagnation once held. Doors open that were blocked for seasons. Witches do not give up easily. But when believers fight with knowledge, authority, and discipline, darkness must retreat. Assignments fail. Strategies crumble, and you step into victory. You are not powerless. You are not late. You are awake. You are alert. And now, you have the keys to reclaim your prayer power fully. This season, let no food, no habit, no unconscious routine steal your spiritual momentum again. Reorder, reclaim, rise. Now you see the hidden traps, the doors they quietly opened in your life, the foods, the patterns, the routines they are exposed. Your authority is rising. Your prayers will no longer be slowed. Step forward boldly, disciplined, and alert. This season belongs to you. Victory is your weapon.